Jenny Critchlow. Hello everybody and welcome to your Monday podcast with me, Jenny Critchlow. We're still milking that baby that's fear. It seems to be the gift that keeps on giving. There seems to be an endless way I can look at fear, or we can look at fear as ways of seeing how we live our lives. And when I was listening to the last podcast from last week and thinking about what we were talking about, the most powerful thing I think that came up that I think we should look at this week is where we looked at our fear around going forward and being approved of and wanting to future-proof the future. And one of the reasons we want to do this is because, as I touched on, we are schooled in our early life and our teenage life and later on to build what I call a persona rather than a person. And if we understand how that works, we can start to take steps to build a life where we step into fear and we allow fear to be something that motivates us in its feeling excited and ready way, rather than the terrible thing that we think fear is. And what I mean by we're schooled to build a persona, not a person, is that often from the moment we're born, but definitely if you've been through mainstream education, we are taught very early on that who we are and whether we fit in and whether we're going to do well or are doing well, or whether we get awards or whether we get attention in a positive way, that relies on the approval and applause of other people, namely teachers and parents and people in authority. But fitting in relies on the approval of your peers. Winning relies on someone setting what a race is. I mean, what's a 100-metre running race other than an arbitrary point between one stick and another stick, or one line and another line, and seeing who can run that bit faster? But make it 150 and someone else may win. It is all arbitrary, and we set these parameters up and these rules up. And we teach children, and we were taught, that there is a certain measurement around who we are as a person, whether we fit in, as I said, whether we win, whether we lose, who we are. We're even taught that we are more valuable if we can fit into these very tight parameters. And the interesting thing about this schooling is that it never stops. It cannot stop to start to understand and learn who you individually are as a person and nurture and grow that. So if we were going to grow a person, we would take a small child and we would watch what it was good at and what it wasn't so good at, find out what its interests were and its strengths were, and spend its childhood and teenage years helping that person, that child, to grow into the person, the adult, that they were displaying at each individual moment. Instead, we take the children, or us, we're taken, and we are told what we should or shouldn't be good at and how we should be, and then judged whether we are or we aren't at it. Even though running 100 metres at 5 years old fast is nothing to do with anything other than whether you can or you can't and who you're pitched against. That's all that is taken as by the by. And so what we learn as children is who we are in our essence. Our individuality doesn't get us anything. It doesn't really get us any approval or help us fit in with our peers unless it comes to us naturally. And the things that come to us naturally, therefore, we tend to not value, because what comes to us naturally isn't a struggle. Because if it's not struggled and strived for, it probably isn't worth having. Either way, what we learn from a very young age is to perform, is to role play our way through life. We all learn ways to please our teachers, please our parents, be approved of. We learn ways to fit in with our peers, and they learn ways to fit in with us. None of those behaviours are what comes naturally. We learn to role play through our schooling and through our lives with adults and authority. We learn what doesn't get us into trouble. We learn what isn't painful. We learn to put smiles on our faces. We learn our manners and to say please and thank you. We learn to say sorry when we're not sorry. We don't really know what sorry means. We say to children, oh, say you're sorry, please. And it's a 4-year-old, and this 4-year-old says, sorry. And they don't really know what sorry is. Are they sorry? No, they're just role-playing the word you've taught them to say in order to role-play with the rest of the world, because sorry is what should come next. And so all through this life, this child's life, our childhood life and our teenage lives, we are building and building and building an outward persona that gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, that the world approves of. So we learn how to do it, how we should look, how we should act, what we should earn, the jobs we should do, what the hierarchy is, what's expected of us. And it blows up like a big bubble around this tiny child that we've been really since birth, or at least since year one, that has never really grown and been applauded and looked after for who that child really is, for who we really are. And so this outer shell that gets bigger and bigger and bigger, that's this persona, relies on the approval of the world, if you like, in order to feel okay. And if the approval of the world doesn't come, and that could be anyone, a parent, a teacher, a peer, the world, that bubble bursts and shrinks back straight to that tiny child that we really are, the person we haven't grown. And the pain of that is so difficult, the pain of that is so raw, and the wound of that is so vulnerable, that we will do anything to maintain our persona in the world. And in many ways it works, in lots of ways it makes good workers, good consumers, because we're constantly looking outside of ourselves, not only for that approval, but to decorate the outside of this big bubble in a way that the world will approve of. So it keeps us buying clothes and makeup and getting our hair done and all the different things. In fact, I had a client once, years and years ago, and he turned up for work. He turned up for his appointment here in a new car. And I said, oh, wow, you've got a new car. It looks really nice. And he said, oh, no, it's not mine. He said, at work, when we do sales, we have this big chart and we have to fill it in when we make a sale and what have you. He said, the one who's got the most sales at the end of the month gets this car for the month. And I looked at him and I went, okay, well, that chart is a star chart for grown-ups. That's what it is. We are so schooled that they've got him, this bright, intelligent, lovely guy, selling so that he wins the car for a month. That's how schooled we are, and the world approves of that persona. What we're also taught in building this persona is that there is a right and a wrong answer, a right and a wrong way to go about life. The right way means the world will approve. The right way gets you the job you say you want. The right way will make sure you're okay for life. I mean, that's part of it, isn't it? We're being schooled to get a good job so we can be okay for life. And you name me one adult that's okay for life. I don't know one. Whatever school system you went through, you're not okay for life. It doesn't work. But we're schooled by adults that still believe this, that haven't questioned it, and tell us that we will be okay for life if we can just get this exam, or get into this university, or get this apprenticeship. And there is a right way and a wrong way. And the right answers in our maths book get us a tick and get us a star in our star chart and get us approval. And the wrong answer is shameful. Back to that old thing called shame again. It is shameful not to know. To be uninformed is to be shameful. To not know is to be shameful. To not be good enough is to be shameful. To not win is to be shameful. And therefore, at the root of it, we are schooled through shame. We fear the shame of not fitting in. We fear the shame of being sent out the classroom, the shame of detention, the shame of punishment, the fear of punishment, especially if it's painful punishment. Even the fear of having your playtime taken away, that's absurd as far as I'm concerned. We fear the shame of that. And so we emerge into adulthood having grown nothing of ourselves, but very well schooled in role playing, with this big persona that we project into the world that contains inside of it a tiny frightened child, frightened of the wrong answer. And then we're expected to create a life for ourselves. Go out and be creative. Go out and make a difference. Go out and have our opinions heard. And yet nothing in any of that prepares us for that. And we emerge fearful. We emerge afraid. We are no different to that 5-year-old that got pulled out in the middle of the classroom for doing something supposedly wrong. In other words, for not role-playing what the teacher wanted, not role-playing what your parents wanted. And we're shamed in front of other people. And so there we are in our early adulthood, wondering how on earth to do this. What do? We can enter professions where there is a right and a wrong. And therefore, we can enter institutions and we can go to work for big businesses and we can have star charts for grown-ups and we can have ticks and exams. And a lot of us will thrive there because it's what we know and we keep ourselves safe. But outside of those environments, we're still afraid. We're afraid of people not doing it because why aren't they conforming? We're afraid of the decisions we didn't make and the decisions we may have to make. Or we go out there and we don't know what we want to do and we're trying to create a life for ourselves. And the idea of stepping out into that fear brings us back all the way to our schooling and brings us back to exactly what we were talking about last week, about what we want to do really is future-proof the future so we can step in to the next step that will take us where we think we want to go. And do you remember how we ended last podcast where we talked about nothing new, nothing creative, nothing innovative, nothing inspiring comes from something that's already been done. It comes from us stepping into the fear and doing that anyway. And one of the reasons we're so frightened to do that is because we never grew a person. We're never able to grow a person or to know that person where it was safe to make these mistakes and be wrong. So we're looking over our shoulder, waiting for the world to ridicule us, and the world does ridicule us. We're looking over our shoulder, waiting for the world to correct us or catch us out, and the world will correct us and catch us out because we're looking at the similar people who have been schooled in similar ways, and we're taught to pounce and judge the people who are getting it wrong. But we can't create anything new that's definitely going to be right. We have to take the risk that it's wrong. And if you could see me now, I'm making those sort of, things in the sky that make it wrong, but not really wrong. Inverted commas, that's it. Is that we have to be able to try lots of different things that don't work in order to find the thing that does work. But we are constantly fighting the fear. And the fear is that of other people and their judgment, of other people seeing us, of other people criticizing us. And when they do, it's the fear of that feeling of being so small, so tiny, so vulnerable, that we fear being lost in it and that it's impossible to emerge from this and dust ourselves off and start again. But when we understand that that is indeed the truth for so many of us, we also understand that nothing is going to happen, nothing is going to improve unless we brave it, unless we brave stepping out, unless we brave understanding that we do not know this will work. This could be the biggest public failure you've ever had. But would you rather give it a chance? Would you rather chance it working out? Or chance it not working out, but be on the next rung of the ladder towards it working out? Or would you rather stay exactly where you are now and not chance anything? And that's what I mean when I say we always have a choice. And that is my invitation to you. whatever you fear about your next step, the worst you think can happen about your next step. Your next step is your step towards whatever it is you want to happen. Whether it doesn't work out or it works out, you learn something from it. If it doesn't work out, you take another step in another direction. And if it does work out, then you're following the path and you know your next step, hopefully. But if what you want is out there, you have to go and get it. You have to be the next overnight success that takes 10 years. And it's only in braving that we begin a journey that is uniquely ours, that's uniquely us, and begins to celebrate who we are as a person. And more importantly, begins to grow that part of us that hasn't grown since childhood, and allows us to begin to celebrate exactly the person as we are, rather than the persona that we put on, or our armour that we put on, so the world doesn't criticise us. And so that's my invitation to you this week is what is it? What's the next step? I don't mean what's the next step that's definitely right so you can get what you want. What is the next step you need to take? And brave it. Go and see. It might be completely the right step you need towards what you think you want. But if it's the wrong step, it was never wrong. You will learn something from it. And you build yourself your own special and unique ladder towards your own special and unique goal. What is there to lose, really? What is your next step? And do you dare brave taking it? Let's do that this week. All of us take one step, and let's see how we do. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you next week.